Welcome back. We are going to start painting today. So if you haven't already, make sure you get all of your watercolor supplies set up and ready to go. Along with that, of course, just like we did with our practice neurographic image, we are going to be taping this one to a background as well before we start to paint it, just to kind of help keep it nice and smooth and so it doesn't get as wavy on us, and it also helps to make that really nice border too. Excuse me. So as a reminder, you can see I've got it mostly done here with my tape around those edges, but I still have to do this edge up here. Before you get started, you want to make sure that you've got everything on here that you want. You know, that you've got all those permanent lines drawn in. If any of the spaces just looked a little bit plain or like they could use a little extra flourish or boost, feel free to go back in and add those. I know this is a little bigger than my screen here, but you can see I've added in more than was on my picture, especially with like hair kind of blowing in the wind. I just thought that that would give it a little bit more movement, make it look more interesting, especially with this style of artwork. So feel free to add anything to yours too before we get started with the watercolor painting. Okay? All right. So once I've got that all ready to go, once again, I want to get my image taped down. I'm putting mine just on a paper grocery bag. That's what I'm taping mine to, but it could just be a larger piece of paper, whatever you've got. Taking my tape here. I'm using masking tape, but if all you've got is the Scotch tape, use that. My tape is really, really sticky, and I don't want it to rip my paper when I'm taking it off later, so I'm going to deactivate it by putting it on to my shirt, just like that. Picks up a little bit of lint this way. Oh my God, look at how sticky it is. It's so sticky, it's like hard to get off of here. Anyway, so it's just picking up a bit of the lint so that it's less likely then to hold on so tight to your paper that it's going to actually rip it when we take it off in a few days from now. I'm trying to make sure that my lines are nice and straight. I don't want it to be on any crazy angles or anything like that. All right, now that we've got that, our next steps, we are going to be painting the face and neck only. So no hair today, no background today. We're really just focusing on the face. Always test your watercolors on a separate piece of paper first, just to check the colors. Sometimes you think it looks one way as watercolor cake, but then once you actually test it on a separate piece of paper, you're like, oh, that's what that looks like, and it might look different. So always test it first. You can't really go back once you start putting it on. Well, I guess you can make it darker, but you know, a lot of times that might not be what we wanted to do. So anyway, separate piece of paper first. Begin with the lightest color first, so look for areas on your faces that would be like highlights. So usually areas that stick out further, like your nose and your cheekbones, maybe here on your forehead, maybe here on your chin. Areas that stick out a little further, those are going to be the areas that we maybe want to have be the lightest. And then the areas that kind of fall back into space, that's where we're going to have it be a bit darker. So here, right here, maybe under the eyes a little bit, around the eyes. Right under your lip, so like here, there's usually a highlight. Under your lip, there's usually a little shadow, shadow. Obviously, your jawline, you can see shadowing happening here. So kind of play around with that. This isn't necessarily meant to be photorealistic. Obviously, it's a neurographic portrait. So, you know, if you're like, oh, mine doesn't exactly have that all like perfectly portioned out with how it looked in the picture or how I added my lines to it, don't worry about that too much. That's just kind of setting a baseline for like, hey, you know, like lighter colors are going to pop out looking like they're coming out towards you in space, and those darker colors are going to kind of recede back. Okay, so we're working on face and neck only today. We're going to take our time, really do a nice job on those. So let's begin. Another thing I want to remind you of too is this does not have to be photorealistic, meaning you don't have to use natural skin tones if you don't want to. You want your face to be purple? Cool. Green? Great. You go for it. Okay. I would stick to kind of the same color family though, making it like semi-monochromatic, or at least analogous at most, as far as color variations. Because if you start having like, oh, you know, I'm going to have purple here on my face and yellow here and orange over there, it's not going to flow together. It's going to look very segmented and broken up. So kind of stick in the same color family. And the nice thing is, you guys, honestly, like if you just kind of stick with like one row here, that would do the trick. Or even just like one little section, right? Maybe I stick with this section or this section, right? Like kind of pick a color family and stick with that as you're painting, and that'll help it look like a skin tone or skin, even if the color of it isn't normal skin color, right? Like if we choose purple or something. Anyway, here we go. What do I want to do? I haven't decided yet if I want to do natural skin colors or if I want to do something a little bit more funky. I think I'm going to kind of bridge the two. I think I'm going to do some oranges, but then mix in more like pinks and stuff like that, which are kind of there, but I'm going to go a little more vivid and vibrant than typical. So I want to start with my lightest colors first. I'm getting out a separate piece of paper to try it out first. So getting my water, I know you guys can't see this off to the side here. Getting my watercolor cake activated with the water there. Trying it out here. Do I like that? Now that's a skin tone, right? That looks pretty like a natural skin tone might be. So I kind of like it. I'm debating. Yeah, I think I'm going to stay with that. I want some of them to be bordering on natural skin tones, but then bring in some real vibrant ones as well. So here we go. We're going to paint that over here. I'm going to go into some of the lighter areas. Here we go. I'm going to go on the bridge of my nose, right up here. And just notice I'm kind of trying to stay within those lines, almost like this is a coloring book or something, right? Don't go outside those lines. If you want to do some color gradients inside of there, you can. That's looking pretty good. Oh, and did I miss that little bit there? There we go. All right. Now I might choose to add that in other areas as well. Let's see. I might have this, once again, the chin. Oops. Add a little bit more color than water to this one. That's okay. And if there's a little variation, that's all right too, right? We're going to have that. Maybe a little bit of lightness here on the eye. I was going to go here on my cheek, but I think that's going to be too close to that one. Maybe I go, oh, that cheekbone, the top of the cheekbone, not the under part. I could have some lighter areas. How's that looking so far? That's looking pretty good. Just debating if there's any other spots that I want to keep light. Maybe right here. Because remember, we're doing face and neck. So don't forget the neck, don't forget ears. Basically anywhere that there's skin, we can work on that. Alright, I think that's good for that color. I'm going to look for my next color. Once again, I am going to test it first. So, I'm going to go with a pink next. And I'm going to put it right next to this one and see if I like those together. Oh, it's a little bright. But I do like them together. I think this is going to help bridge then into some of those more vibrant pink and reds that I'm planning on using. So this is still a really light color. So once again, I'm looking for areas that would be kind of naturally light. And if it looks a little too dark, you can always kind of give it a little wash and add more water to it. Because obviously the more water that's added to your watercolor paint, the more white of the paper that's going to show through and the lighter it's going to look. Now I'm trying to stay within those lines as best as I can. However, if I am overlapping my permanent marker lines by just a bit, I'm not going to get too worried about that, because I know that in a few class periods I'm going to be able to go back over those lines just like we did with our practice one. Grabbing a little bit more of the watercolor here. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And maybe a little bit more right here. And I can always come back with this color again later. But for now, I'm just trying to pick out like where would these highlights be. That's kind of one big section here. Alright, and then I think maybe one more area on the neck. I'm debating, do I want there? I think I'm going to go here. Alright, my next darkest color, once again I want to test it. And I'm not going to do the entire thing, like that will take a really long time. Obviously we have an entire class for just this. But I wanted to show you a few of them, just to kind of show you how I'm working through this. So you can see that color's a little bit darker. I like how they go together. They're still looking good. Now we're starting to get into a little bit more funky colors, right? Like we're not going to necessarily see a fuchsia pink usually on people's faces. But here we go. It's happening. We're making it happen anyway. Okay, so maybe there. Maybe inside of the ear here. Maybe right there. I'm just taking my time and making this look quite lovely. I need to add a little bit more. Alright, painting that in. I'm feeling a lot like Bob Ross right now, you guys. Just like some happy little paint lines here. If you don't know who Bob Ross is, you must find an episode on YouTube or wherever and watch it. The man is a legend. He'll definitely calm you down as you watch how to paint. Or grab a canvas and even paint for real yourself alongside him. Alright. Once again, I'm just kind of picking like where would the next area be? The next shade down, like the next darker one. So maybe there. Let's see. Maybe right in this area. I think could use a little bit darker like that. It's looking pretty good. And maybe even this big guy right up here. Alright, so I am going to continue on, and you should too. Focusing on simply the face and the neck, so any skin really is what we're focusing on for this day. Next time we'll be working on the hair and any clothing, and then the following day we'll start working on refining those lines and working on the background. So have fun with this. Take your time. That's all. Take your time. Use a small paintbrush. Make sure you're staying kind of in those same color families, not deviating too much, just because we want to make sure that this looks like, even though it might not be actual skin tones, it'll have the idea of being skin simply because it's all kind of in that same analogous color scheme. Okay. But yeah, keep on going. Have fun with this. Can't wait to show you what it looks like, and I can't wait to see yours next time.